It's Ksenija Pavlovic Mcateer. I think I've said that right, have I?
Yeah, you said it perfectly.
Very
Thank you
good.
so much for having me. I'm very excited to be
Yeah,
here.
it's great to see you. Tell us a bit about you and your job in the White House, because you operate as a sort of freelance, right?
I have my own media company. It's
Yeah.
called Pavlovic Today, and I'm independent White House correspondent. I started covering the White House in 2016 by
Right.
the end of the Obama's administration.
Right.
I stayed throughout the whole 4 years of Trump, and now I'm covering Joe Biden as an independent White House correspondent. I have a hard pass, and I'm there almost every day now.
Right. And it's an exciting place. I mean, I've only been in the White House once, actually inside the press room, but I was there a very long time ago when Ronald Reagan was president. I don't want to go so far back. But what's the difference now in terms of the way that it's run? Because under Donald Trump, it was obviously very dynamic. There was, you never knew what was going to happen next. The Biden administration seems a little bit more kind of miserable, if you like.
I mean, they like to control the optics.
Yeah.
I think if you look at a leaked conversation between Biden and the former president of Afghanistan,
Yeah.
President Ghani, you could understand how Biden operates.
Yeah.
He told him, like, you need to project for the optics the image of strength,
Yeah.
even if it's not so. And I think that's how whole mindset of the Biden comms team is set up to, look good for the cameras. But in reality, they like to control a lot,
Right.
who gets called, what questions you're going to ask,
Right.
and things like that. At the same time, they're super polite. They're very nice. So I cannot tell you anything bad about them,
Right.
Because they treat us so well.
Right.
It's sort of like a Pleasantville once you enter the White House, but it's very kind of like controlled environment. And if you remember the first press conference he was holding in the East Room, no one even raised their hand,
Right.
which was very odd, kind of like orderly, kind of like
Yes.
White House press corps. And I was asking myself, am I in the same place? Am I in the same
Right.
room? Are those the same colleagues I worked throughout every day for the last 4 years of Trump?
Right.
It's just like,
And so is the media different then? Do they behave differently to Biden as they did towards Donald Trump? Because a lot of them are very hostile to Trump, weren't they?
Absolutely, but Trump was also asking for it a lot. He was all the time asking for this kind of like...
He quite liked it, didn't he?
He did.
Yeah.
And he was rude many times, as you could see,
Right.
So he was also setting up this atmosphere, that you really want to be aggressive with him. But with Biden, it's very hard.
Right.
It's almost like he's bringing you the candies and the first lady is getting out, the White House, bringing chocolate for the
Right.
press. So, I mean, the press definitely, keeps Biden less accountable than it was the case
Yes.
with Trump.
I'm
And
sure that's
it's just
true.
upsetting for me. Particularly, I'm independent,
Yeah.
so I think on my own terms. So just this idea that I need to kind of like fit in and
Right.
kind of like amplify his talking points, I don't want to do that.
No, of course not, because you want to be able to be critical. And watching him over the past month or so, during the whole debacle of Afghanistan and the disaster that it became, I mean, he clearly has convinced himself that it was a success. He gave that bizarre press conference where he talked about the incredible airlift. And it's like, well, hang on, the only reason there was an airlift in the first place was because you screwed it up.
He did like a list of damages, and the list of damages he done is very long. Like, let's speak about just domestic aspect of it. Look,
Right.
don't forget Afghanistan. Like, let's see what he did in the United States. Like,
Yeah.
he turned American voters politically homeless right
Yeah,
now,
right.
because you have a situation where they maybe didn't want to vote for Trump.
Right.
They voted for him, but now they de facto don't want to keep supporting him. So I think the Democrats are in for a rude awakening.
Yeah.
They do not have a candidate for 2024,
Right.
and I believe that Joe Biden is going to be one-term
I
president.
think he will be a one-term president, because it really was a terrible thing that he did in Afghanistan. And when you saw the parents of the Marines talking about how he was a decrepit old, so-and-so, when you saw him looking at his watch at Dover Air Force Base as the bodies were coming out in the coffins, when you see the way that he operates in front of the cameras, you just think, what are you thinking? How can you possibly think any of that is good?
It's hard to comprehend what he's doing. The death of 13 Marines was avoidable.
Yeah.
And, he's now framing conversation like, I wanted to get out.
Right.
It was a good decision, but no one is talking about that.
Right.
Don't frame conversation in such way, because you're responsible. You're commander-in-chief. You're
Yes.
responsible for this operation, and you said you don't want to see any American lives lost anymore, but you lost 13.
Right.
And it was not a war zone even, you know. So he shut down the Bagram Air Base. Like, why would you do that? Why on earth would you do that? If you're talking about any exit strategy, you want to have more than one, right?
Of course. And looking at the Taliban, I know it's a temporary government that they now have, but it's full of men. There are no women in it. They've reinstated the minister for, I think it's virtue, which were the people who used to go around beating women if they showed their wrists. Used to go around beating men if they cut their beards. You know, this is the same old Taliban, and you have to know that, you have to believe that it's going to be a problem in the future.
It is a problem, and they're not going to change. They said in the first press conference, if you remember, it's like, we are believers in the same ideology. So why would anyone think that they're any different? I mean, they care very much about the optics. And if you read Bin Laden's letters from the past that were declassified, you see that he was the one also obsessing over, you know, amplifying their message, getting this sympathy all around the world. And Taliban are following that. If you really look closely, you know, they want to look as, you know, good guys almost, you know, and they're really bad guys, right?
They really are.
So I think Biden really dropped the ball on Afghanistan, and he heard the Western alliance. In my view, he heard the UK-US special relations. And I heard your prime minister the other day when Andrew Bridgen asked him, you know, is there going to be a defense review about this so-called now special relationship? Johnson said, well, this is very important relation. It is a cornerstone of democracy and the history of the balance of power. That's all correct, but now only on paper.
Yes.
Because look what he did. So how you can trust Biden again? I wouldn't.
No. I don't think you can. And he's also made it possible for China to take hold of that whole region now, because they're going to go in. They're already in there anyway. They're going to own all the lithium mines. They're going to own all the mineral deposits. They're going to be basically able to influence that entire area, right?
And I'm worried. I'm worried because the world is less safer than it was a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And he could, you know, show some, you know, talent for international grand strategy. I think your Tony Blair had more talent for this type of thinking at the global level than Biden does. So Biden proved himself completely incapable of making an international grand strategy decision, because you cannot tell your allies, okay, you had the option to stay. Wait a minute, like, stay? We went with you because America was attacked. We were not attacked, right? So if we went together, we need to get out together.
Exactly.
So, you know, all these big words that he has, you know, about friendship, partnership, you know, global alliance and things like that are just like that letter on a paper, because in reality, what is he doing?
And that's the other thing, because it's America first and it's very selfish when it comes to foreign policy. He doesn't seem to have a clue. Can you imagine if Donald Trump had done all of the things that Biden had done? We'd never hear the end of it.
He would be tried for treason. Like, I have no doubt. I mean, I was very critical myself of Trump, very critical throughout the 4 years. And then I see, if I was holding Trump accountable for some things that he did, and now I'm not holding accountable Biden, like, what I'm doing then?
Yeah, exactly.
In the press corps, like what? Like taking notes, taking selfies. I mean, I don't care.
Yeah, and the other question I suppose I can ask you is what about Kamala Harris? Because she's been very quiet in this past period since the Afghanistan debacle, and a lot of people wondering whether he's going to last the term and if she's going to end up as president.
I mean, it's possible. I would say it's possible, but would she be more capable than Biden? I don't think so.
I doubt it. I think that would be a terrible thing.
She doesn't have any experience in international relations. She doesn't understand the world. She had to attend like additional briefings with Blinken, you know, to do, you know, some, you know, education on that front. That would not be a good option.
And what do you make of Blinken? Because he looks to me like a guy who's not happy with the commander-in-chief.
I mean, I don't think anyone is happy. You can also see on Axelrod, he was the former Obama advisor. He really went out and he was very vocal about criticizing Biden. No one is happy with Biden, but everyone is stuck with Biden. Why? Because Biden was elected the president as the only viable alternative to Donald Trump. So he was elected because he was not Donald Trump.
Yes.
Not because he was Joe Biden.
Right.
And now we are stuck with him for the next 3 years. And what he did in the last 7-8 months, imagine project that in the next 3-4 years. I'm worried.
I think you should be. And America itself is in a very bad place. I saw an incredible video the other day from Philadelphia of this part of town. And I know people say, well, every city's got a bad part of town, but this was unbelievable. Everyone in the street seem to be off their faces on spice or on crystal meth or something. Rubbish everywhere. Abandoned cars, people sleeping in like containers. I mean, it's really bad news, isn't it?
It is a horrible news because if you live in a big city, you want to feel safe. No matter if here a conservative is in charge or a labor is in charge, you want to feel safe on your streets. And for some reason, the Democrats, and you can say like, oh, the Republicans are the only one who are saying that, but they're right. Like Democrats, for some reason, are not capable of keeping control of
running
cities.
Yeah, that's right.
They're super well spoken. They have all the nice suits. They say all the right things, and they get elected, and they do terrible job. So I mean, it's just so disappointing because Philly always had a problem. It was one of the poorest cities in the United States. So this didn't change. But since the George Floyd protest, I think the situation deteriorated because they allowed for this to happen because they thought, okay, this is going to take Trump down. But then the problem is still there. Like Trump is not in the office anymore, but are they going to fix the problem? I don't think so. I don't think they can, really.
Right, it's terrible. Well, Ksenija, listen, great to meet you. Hopefully we'll be able to talk to you some more when you're back over there.
Of course.
You might have to get up a little bit earlier, unfortunately.
No problem at all. Always for you,
But
Mike.
it would be great. Ksenija, she is, of course, a White House correspondent. Pavlovic, what was the name of the company?
Pavlovic Today.
Pavlovic Today. Ksenija Pavlovic Mcateer, thank you very much indeed
for all
of that insight. We'll be back with the Taxpayers Alliance coming next.